Okay, guys, we have moved on to lesson 5, unit 6, the coordinate plane, and this is the distance between 2 points. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this. This is can be confusing. Sometimes we're going to take the absolute value and add the numbers. Other times, what we're going to do is we're just going to count. And that's going to vary on our process. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here, and we'll take our time. And this is, these lessons are getting more involved here. We're just not putting plots on a coordinate plane. We have to count and add and figure a lot of things out. Determine the distance between the 2 points on the number line. So here's -3, and this is really 1.5. So if I was to count this, there's a couple of different ways. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So that answer could be 4.5 units, right? Or I could add the absolute value of these two numbers. 3 plus 1.5 is 4.5. So there's two different ways to do that. And that absolute value technique works when they're opposite, adding when they're opposite of the zero. So let's try that again. So I have somewhere in between, and it looks like our interval, so this is really -3, this is -1. That's 1, 2, and 3, just to help you a little bit. So to me, this would be, when I look at this to me is going to be a little bit easier just by adding my absolute values here, I guess. But, if you look at it this way, it'd be like 1, 1, 2, 3, and 3/4, right? So that's -3 and 3/4. And this is just 3/4, right? That's not a negative, it's just 3/4. So if we were to add the values of those, we would get 4, and I'll write that over here, 4 1/4 units. And you can use your calculator for that. You can just add those two numbers together and you end up with 4 1/4. Or you could count it, you could go, hey, 1, 2, 3, and 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1 1/4, and add it that way. So sometimes it's easier to add the absolute values. Other times it's easier to count. And that's what we're going to say about this. It's just going to vary. Varies. All right. So to determine the coordinate plane, all right. So the coordinate plane can be used to determine the distance, right? The distance and direction between points. All right. So let me pull it up just a tad for you there. Okay. So use the coordinate plane to determine the distance and the direction between the points below. Okay. So we'll start with A and D. So here's A, here's D, right? And A is on the line of 5, so if I was to write that, that would be a 5. And D is negative, looks like to be 2.5. So to me, we could take these two absolute values and add it. So the absolute value of this is 5. The absolute value of this is 2.5. So we're about 7.5 apart. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. And when we look at this is a vertical look. vertical. Okay. Okay. So now we have B and F. We're looking for F. Oh, there it is, B and F. So now you see how these were opposite. A and D were opposite this line of reflection. These are on the same side of it. So it's not going to be adding, but we're actually going to be subtracting these absolute values. Right, if we look at it this way, or we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, and a half, or watch, and I'll write 6.5 down because I know that's the answer. But this is 3, this is 9.5, right? 9.5 minus 3 is 6.5, and the reason we subtracted is because they're on the same side of the line of reflection. So this is again a vertical look. Okay, so the next one is C and D. Here's C and here's D, right? And I'm going to erase these numbers as I go back because I'm going to be looking at these differently here, and I'm going to be using those same plots. But anyway, we're on the same side of the line of reflection, so we're going to be subtracting. But anyway, let's figure out what we have here, right? All right, so this is -1. This is -9, right? Absolute value of this is 9. The absolute value of this is 1. 9 minus 1 is 8. and that's a horizontal look, and I'm just going to write it that way. And if you didn't believe me, watch. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There it is. Okay, E and A. So we have E and A. E and A. All right. Well, I know that's going to be a horizontal look. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this and this. Get this cleaned up a little bit for us here. Okay. It's going to be a long lesson here. It's a tough one now. All right. E and A. So this is one where you may want to count. But again, hey, or opposite sides of the line of reflection, it's probably easier just to write, the absolute value of this is 9. Negative 9 is 9. And the absolute value of this is what? That's 7.5. So 9 plus 7.5, right, is 16.5, where we added those two. Or you could count all of these little lines. Make sure you know the interval. That works as well. Okay, last one is G and B. G and B, this is negative 3, and this is 1. Absolute value of this is 3 plus 1 is 4, and that's another horizontal look. So we could count this 1, 2, 3, 4, or we could just add the absolute values of these numbers. You add when they're opposite the line of reflection, or on the same side of the line of reflection, you would subtract, and that's where it gets a little bit confusing, but that's okay. We're going to continue on. Which ordered pair best describes a point that is located 3 units to the left of the origin? 3 units to the left of the origin. So I have to go back, don't I? To go back, and then 3 units above the x-axis. So it's letter G, isn't it? Because that's negative 3, and 3 fits it. Point H, and I hope you can see that. Let me check my camera here. Yeah. All right. So point H is located 3 units away from point B. Okay. So we don't have an H. We're looking for it. It's located 3 units away from point B. So it could be this way, this way, this way, or this way. All right. Could 4 and 3 represent this? Well, let's see. Here's 4, and here's 3. 1, 2. Yeah, that's 3 units away. That would be letter H. So absolutely it is. Absolutely. Okay. All right, let's continue on and continue our path here through this. All right, let me check my thing there. Let me pull you down just a little bit because I want to make sure I get good vocabulary here. All right, if 2 points have the same x or y coordinate, then they lie on the same line, all right, of the coordinate plane. Okay, so we're going to take our time here, all right? So use the coordinate plane to help answer the questions in the table. Point 1, point 2. Point 1 is 0, negative 6. So if I went 0, negative 6, that would actually put me right here. We'll call that 1. And point 2 is 0, 9. And that actually puts me up here, right there, right? So what do they have in common? They're both on the what? They're both on the what? They're both on the y coordinate, right? Excuse me, they're both on the y-axis. Here's x and here's y. They're both on the y-axis. All right, or what do they have in coordinate? The y coordinate. All right, so they're both they're both on the y-axis, and they both have the same y coordinate. So either one's fine. What's the distance between these two? We could take the absolute value of those two numbers and add them together, or we could count. But here's 9 plus 6 is 15 units. I better label that. Okay, so the next one is 8, negative 2. So we're 8, negative 2. And I'm going to actually put these down, and that's going to be 0.1. And 0.2 is negative 4, negative 2. There's 2. All right, so they're opposite the line of reflections. I could get the absolute value. What do they have in common? Well, their y coordinate is in common. What's the distance? Well, add those y coordinates up, right? So we get 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? They're 12 units apart. Now, could I do it by adding, as I just mentioned a second ago? Sure. Right? Take the absolute value of those two numbers. 8 and 4 is 12. Okay. So the next one, they're going to give us a little bit different information. We're going to work backwards here. Okay. Okay. So 0.1 is 3 and 6. 3 and 6. I'll take that up to here. There's my 1. And then what do they have in common? Well, the y-coordinate. Well, the y-coordinate's the second one, so I know the y-coordinate has to be 6. So they're 9 units. What's their distance? 9 units away. Okay. So if it's 9 units away, I know this is up to 6. So it has to be -6 back here. So it's going to be about right in there, right? So it's going to be negative, right? -6. Why? Because it's 9 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if I added those two numbers, I would get 9. What do they have in common? They have in common the y-coordinate, right? 6 and 6. Okay. Here we go with the next one, -8, -1. They have the x-coordinate in common. Okay. Well, no problem. They have the x-coordinate in common. So I'm going to give the first one a -8. Now, they're 6 units apart, right? And when we look at this, all right, they're 6 units apart and they have the x-coordinate in common. So here's my x. So let's go ahead and label this one -8, -1, -8, -1, right? And this could be -8, right? And if they're 6 units apart, this would have to be, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which takes me to 5. That's one possibility, right? Or another possibility really is -8. And if it's 6 units apart, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It could be -8 and -7. So there's actually two answers there that would work for this, because this is 6 units away from that, and so is this. All right, y-coordinate. They have the y-coordinate, all right, and these are going to vary. They just have to be 15 units apart. So the y-coordinate is the second one. So I don't know, I'm going to start with something easy here. 9 and 9. And I'm going to put it right there. So my ordered pair is 9 and 9, right? The y-coordinate has in common. So I know the second number is 9. It has to be 15 units apart. So the absolute value, all right, if I added this, so if I just went, 15 units apart, well, this has to be 9, this second one, because our y-coordinate has to be 9. So if I want to go back, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. I could put it right there. And where did that take me? It took me to -6 and 9, right? And look, 15 units apart, 9 and 6 is 15. I took the absolute value of that negative and added it together. So this would vary, right? We could have a lot of different answers here for this one, this problem there. All right, so what observation did we make about finding all this? We can count, we can go absolute value. I do both a lot of times because I'll jump back and forth just to check myself. All right, last problem. Let me pull my camera up here. We got 2 more down here. All right, it says create a rectangle below with a perimeter of 20 and an area of 24. Well, I know if it's a rectangle, area is length times width, right? So I need to know the length and the width. And when I multiply those two, I'm going to get the area. So my length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is already 6. So I need a width of 4, because 6 times 4 is 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And I'm just going to call this letter C and letter D. Right? And if you look at this, then I'll draw it in here a little bit for you with some red. Make it nice. but you'll be able to see my rectangle now, right? There's my rectangle, okay? And this is 6, this is 4. 6 times 4 is 24, so there's my 24. Now, if I count the perimeter, it's going to be 20. 6, this is 6 is 12. 12 and 4 is 16, and this has to be 4. So that's 20, it works. Let's move on to the next one. I need a perimeter of 26 and an area of 36. Well, right now I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 apart. So 9 times 4 is 36. So I need to make sure this is 9. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Call that letter C. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Call that letter D. Right? So let me go ahead and make that with my red pen here. And there we are. And here. Here. And let's bring this around here. And let's count it. So this was already 4, right? And this is 9. 9 fours are 36. Well, if that's 9, this has to be 9, and that has to be 4. If I add all of these up, it has to equal 26. 18, 22 plus 4 is 26, and it works. So again, I just like to count those. It's a little bit safer for me. So anyway, hey, that was lesson 5, distance between points. You can count, you can use absolute value, whatever works for you. All right, guys, go ahead and jump into homework.